afternoon and welcome to CEC Gurukul lecture. In continuation with the series on sociology of religion, in today's lecture I am going to discuss about non-religion and atheism. Now we need to understand what is atheism and how do we kind of understand the dogmatism within atheism. So to begin with, how do we understand what is atheism? Atheism can be defined in many different ways depending upon one's purpose, this is surrounding, that is how we can conceptualize what is atheism. One of the way in which we understand atheism is negative atheism, and that is because religion has been kind of conceptualized as something which is positive, something which is functional for the society. So if you are not religious and you are kind of part of a religious group or non-religious, then you are kind of a deviant, you are not normal, and therefore it is negative. So this is kind of more commonsensical would be that atheist is a person who lacks a belief in a deity. So it's negative, you don't have a belief in it. But then atheism can also be defined positively. The positive definition is kind of more certainty that we cannot explain whether any god or any deity exists. So if we are not able to explain whether it exists, then we are not also going to give explanation for why we don't believe in it. So it's more positive. In that context, atheist is someone who rejects the possibility of any deity. And that religion, if we look into the way it has been explained in sociology, is only a set of ideas, it's a set of belief system. So it could be, and even if we go into Durkheim's definition of religion, it categorically says that it is not necessary to understand religion with the any presence of any deity. Buddhism as a religion has no deities. So how do we look into the idea of what is the possibility of rejecting the idea of deity? When we look into atheism, we also need to understand that is atheism supposed to be anti-religion? Are we going to place atheism and theism on polar parts? And the answer is that no. Being an atheist need not necessarily be that you are opposing religion. It is just that you are not supporting a set of ideas and you don't believe in that. So it is not kind of against theism, or it is not against religion. These are not opposite terms. And when we try to understand how those who have left religion, that is kind of idea of shifting from being religious, having a faith in the deity, to someone who kind of rejects the idea of divinity and deity, it has to kind of understand what are the social context or what were the trigger that left to the individual leaving a religion and becoming confident in with certainty that there is a belief in non-existence of the deity. If individuals are kind of raised in more dogmatic ethnocentric religion, that is if they are kind of trained into a very religious atmosphere, then the chances of being dogmatic increases. So if religious is training is dogmatic, then shifting to atheism would also be kind of dogmatic. Now we need to ask the question, how dogmatic are atheists? So the general assumption is that religious people tend to be dogmatic. That dogmatic means ideas that are kind of considered to influence the way you kind of live your life. And so if we put the religion and atheist on polar parts, then religion is considered to be dogmatic and atheist is considered to be undogmatic. This is kind of a general understanding. However, from a sociological perspective, it is important to know whether the religion in which atheists were raised were also dogmatic. If individuals are kind of raised in more ethnocentric religious environment, the childhood religiosity is very strong, then the level of dogmatism will also be high. Now, when we understand atheism, we need to understand religion as a question of identity, the sense of belonging to a group, and that religious identification is very central to understand the way in which social changes are taking place or social system is structured. So, religious beliefs or disbeliefs often are central to people's identity, serving as foundation upon which mundane beliefs rest. So it's a kind of a very strong kind of a belief system. But then we need not necessarily kind of restrict its understanding to believe in certain ideas. So just in politics, if we do not have an ideology, we are not kind of whether we kind of have a leftist ideology or a right ideology, does not mean that I am apolitical. Similarly, if I don't believe in set of ideas associated with a religion, it's not necessary that I am a-religious. So people tend to rate their belief or disbelief in God as more certain. So the belief, or whether you believe in it or you're more certain about it. Most of the time, if we see in a commonsensical understanding of religion, when do we take recourse to God or any kind of a deity or any supernatural power? When our everyday mundane life is under threat or we have not been able to take control of it. So there is a hope, there is a certainty that some superpower or some deity will bring about a certain kind of change. So in very commonsensical way, we call it as a miracle. Now, those who do not believe with certainty that there is something which will bring about a change could be categorized or grouped into a class which would be then termed as atheist. So the most certain about existence of God are obviously rate higher and emotional stability. So if I have a strong faith in kind of a deity, supernatural divinity who will kind of come to rescue or who will bring about a change in my life, then I am kind of more emotionally stable than the one who does not have any kind of certainty or hope on change. So among atheists, the certainty is something which is missing. They are not very sure, they are not very confident about the say any kind of miracles happening, and therefore in atheism there is no space for absolute certainty. Now when we try to understand religious identification, that is identifying oneself with a set of ideas, atheism is a part of religious de-identification. So one does not want to be identified with a particular group or particular sect or particular organization. And this religious de-identifications can take place in several ways. Number one, people may no longer believe in the supernatural. So this could be put within the framework of theories of social change, that when society is moving from a religion society to a rational society, there is no space for supernatural. Why? Because supernatural cannot give you a rational, logical explanation. So there is a religious disbelief. The second sense of de-identification is people stop practicing certain ways, certain behavior, religious behavior, which could also be the result of social life becoming more complex. So this could be religious discontinuation. For instance, a very common example would be, say, from India in society, the members of Brahmin society wearing a tilak or a mark on their forehead. With industrialization, urbanization, the people have kind of reduced. We hardly see people kind of doing it on day-to-day basis. They may be going to a temple or there is a special occasion, people do it. So this is a part of religious discontinuation. The third is people may not want to be affiliated with other religious individual. So this could be explained with the reference to the church, where people were very dissatisfied during the Reformation period in the way in which church as an institution was functioning. So one can still be religious, but one kind of does not want to be affiliated to any organization. So this is religious disaffiliation. And the fourth is people's attitude towards religion becomes more negative. So you kind of don't want to believe that there can be a miracle happens and life will become changed. People kind of start disbelieving in such positive ideas, and this kind of also leads to religious antipathy. When we look into all the four of them, we'll be able to understand the shift from religiosity to atheism. Now, the branch of studying atheism has become in almost very new, say starting from 70s, 80s, and therefore, what is the phrase "leaving religion"? That you leave your religion and kind of become an atheist or become agnostic is something which is kind of relevant in understanding contemporary society. Why? Because you need to understand this passage of leaving the original religion and the trajectory through which one kind of what actually leads to one kind of becoming an atheist. So there could be several possibilities. One, that one becomes an atheist immediately. So you kind of have some kind of religious discontinuation or religious disliking, or you kind of start questioning the way religion is functioning and you become an atheist. The second option is that you formally join another religion. So you kind of find that the religion to which you belong is not kind of very fruitful or it has a lot of demerits. So you leave, you convert from one religion to the other, and then after a period of time there is no satisfaction from that either. So ultimately you give up the believing in religion and you become an atheist. Now there could be a passage of time from one to the other. You reach a level of certainty that no religion is satisfactory and no argument could persuade them to existence of any deity. So in one's own life, through several kind of interaction, engagement, this idea is kind of come strong that there is nothing which could prove the existence of deity, and therefore the belief in any kind of religion becomes very strong. Now, when we look into understanding the ways in which atheism has been understood, there are four ways in which it is explained. One is positive atheist, the second is hard agnostics, the third is soft agnostic, and third is apathetic atheist. They are kind of different ways how we look into understand atheism. Just as we have multiple ways in which we can understand religion or religiosity, there are multiple ways in which atheism has been understood. Now, positive atheists are completely certain, they are very kind of sure that there is no existence of any deity. Those who are not positive justified the application of the atheist label. Now, when we are positive that we are very sure that there is nothing kind of divine or there is nothing so-called God, then we can also kind of come to an understanding that atheism can be seen as a religion. The non-existence of anything is unprovable. Atheism entails a degree of faith. So it's also kind of a belief in something. So if we were to differentiate between atheist and agnostic, we see that atheists still have a faith, whereas agnostic, they don't have any faith. Atheism can then be defined as a religion, whereas agnosticism is a stance about how noble God or gods are. So when we look into atheism as a religion, implicit is that religion is defined by faith in something. So what is religion? You have a faith in a set of ideas, in an institution, and that if you have a belief in the existence of a almighty or God, you cannot actually prove it. So therefore, even when the atheists believe that there is nothing so-called God, it is not required that one needs to prove it. One needs proof in either direction, whether you want to prove that God exists or you prove that it does not exist. There is no proof that God it kind of either, and there is just a lack of evidence that he does. one has to have faith, any kind of a faith in the lack of God as opposed to faith. So therefore, it can be then explained as a kind of a part of religion. So when we look into the debate between religion and secular, so those who oppose secular ideas will give you the evidence from how significant religion is, how important it is in terms of teaching of evolution, and the disadvantage of secular morality in classrooms. So when you are going to give justification for atheism, then you can kind of question and critique the belief system associated with religiosity. Atheism can be seen as a religious category distinct from the irreligious epistemological category of agnostic. So these are terms which are more or less used synonymously, but in sociology of religion they are kind of relatively different. Atheist, agnostic, irreligious, non-religious. The second is hard agnostic. Hard agnostic stated that did not think it was possible for human to ever definitely know whether or not God exists. The impossibility of proving a negative, like the non-existence of a deity. For the hard agnostic, it is impossible to prove the existence of a negative. So, if when we try to understand that we place the theist and the atheist on a pole apart, then we are trying to say that thesis is positive and atheist is negative. Then what is required is that you will explain what religion is. The absence of that will be explained as atheism. So that negativity is not necessarily given proof. So for the hard agnostic, atheist as a subgroup within the broader category of agnostic. Atheists can exhibit certainty that the belief will not change. So they are very firm about the belief that they are not going to come back to the religion that they had lived. So we have two views. One is the view of the positive atheist, who can be very certain of the non-existence of the God because of the theists are able to explain the existence through mythology, through a lot of reference to historical events that has attached, and whenever we are able to give evidence of that, then it is proved. So similarly, there are instances, historical events which can help us to falsify the existence of it. So there is a kind of contestation between the two. Hard agnostic are very certain about being unable to definitely prove the non-existence, the reference to a deity in abstract sense, a deist conception of God which has no specific worldly effect to investigate. So they are very certain that there is no requirement to give evidence of their faith. It is accepted that it cannot be proved. The third form of atheism is soft agnostic. Soft agnostics stated that they personally did not know whether or not a deity exists. That is, there is a lack of knowledge. They are not aware of the fact, and therefore they cannot believe, have faith in ideas which they are not knowing, or they do not have knowledge. So after leaving religion, they initially consider themselves to be agnostic before self-identifying as atheist. The soft agnostic cannot point to any precise watershed movement that compel them to leave a religion and become atheist. Not certain of being identified as atheist because they believe that there are plenty of things which universe that they are not capable of understanding. So the soft agnostics are very clear that they need not have knowledge about it, because we cannot have knowledge of everything in the universe. So it's not an issue if they do not have a understanding of it, but what is very confirmed is that because of the lack of knowledge, they cannot either be kind of termed into the category of theist. And therefore, we have kind of two forms of agnostic. One is the hard and the other is soft. So the reason for leaving religion and becoming an atheist is because of the uncertainty of existence of the divine. The possibility of there being a God is so extremely unlikely that all intent and purposes individual becomes an atheist. So the hard agnostics did not consider it possible for human to ever be certain of the non-existence of God, whereas soft agnostic belief is tied to individuals' incapacity to understand the uncertainty of the God. So this is the difference between the hard and the soft. One, that they kind of have confirmed that there is non-existence, and the other who are kind of acknowledging the fact that there is a lack of knowledge or lack of information, and therefore they are part of the atheist group. The fourth is epistemological apathetic. The epistemologically apathetic were unconcerned with whether or not so it was not their kind of concern to prove or give evidence of the existence of divine or the absence of it. They do not care about the existence or superpower, but rather opt to live their life as a functional atheist. So since they are so occupied in their everyday life that they kind of are not concerned about proving the existence or disproving the non-existence. So the negative atheists regard deities as wholly removed and uninterested. They do not rule out what they conceptualize as deistic God, while they feel completely confident stating that more specific conception of the divine does not exist. So the functional atheist, they kind of is the label which is used for these category of people. They take decision to live life without the concern of religious dogma or religious deity or divine. So they want to kind of have an existential life. So it is in the everyday life that what is in front of them, they can see, they can feel that they are kind of concerned. They don't want to have a set of ideas which they are unaware of or which they cannot kind of do anything about. So they live their life as a de facto atheist. Do not live life in a way that is going to be any kind of retribution by a deity. So they are not kind of concerned about anything coming in from somewhere else. They have faith in what they are doing, and they kind of continue to do that work in the without any interference from a deity or divinity. Underscoring the one's actions are identical to positive atheist. So the functional atheist is very close to the positive atheist, whereas we saw that the kind of hard and soft agnostic were very kind of with the negative atheist. So this positive atheist is one key avenue which negative atheists use to legitimize the application of the atheist label. So when we kind of understand why one becomes a non-believer or why one kind of leaves a religion, it is also at the same time important to understand the reversibility of belief. That is that certain events or certain ideas or incapacity or lack of information helps us to move away from one religion to the becoming an atheist. But in terms, are there any chances of kind of going back to it? So individual must be confident enough in their disbelief to discount the possibility of ever amending some of their most central conviction in order to return back to religion. So this basic understanding is not between religion or theism and atheism, but the whole idea is to problematize the social structure which is also undergoing changes, and how the life of an individual is affected by certain ideas which is coming at a collective level in the form of certain organization, religious sect, and these kind of affects the way in which individual reacts with the rest of the society. So when we look into the reversibility of belief, we kind of see two things. One, positive, that belief can never be changed. So they are the positive atheists who kind of have confirmed faith in the what they are doing, and they don't want to go back. They don't want to reverse and go back to the earlier life. And the second, who are kind of working with a working assumption of the worldview. So the possibility of returning is growing up and practicing religion in private lead to atheism to believe that something done for long period is wrong. So there could be then the chances of going back. So we have already discussed that the whole idea of learning religion is a part of childhood socialization, and the shift to atheism and back to theism is a kind of a decision which individual takes during adulthood. So childhood religiosity refers to emphasis placed on religion in the childhood, and this kind of will depend on the environment or the social context in which individuals are growing. So what kind of ideas of faith one kind of starts adhering is dependent on the social context in which one is growing. So we just as kind of we know that there is an interaction between the public and the private, the biography and the history. So that needs to be understood when we try to understand the increase in secularization or the desecularization that Berger is talking about. And all these concepts like atheism, agnosticism, religious, desecularizations are in a way telling us how the society is changing and the relation between religion, economy, polity and the social system has undergone change. So this will help us to understand theism and atheism not as pole apart but on a continuum. With this, I come to an end of today's lecture. Thank you.